He always said that silence was the truest witness. But that night, the silence became something much heavier. It seemed to squeeze the air out of his lungs, breaking him inside as badly as a scream would have. When Jaeger stood at the door of his old house, the very one where he had spent his childhood, youth, and almost all his pain, it seemed to him that the walls recognized his footsteps before he decided to raise his hand and press the cold doorbell button. He had arrived unannounced for the first time in 5 years, and deep down he hoped that no one would open the door. But the lock clicked too quickly, as if someone had been standing on the other side for a long time listening. Jaeger, his mother's voice sounded quiet, with a strange hint of disbelief. He looked at her and realized that the changes were greater than he had expected. She seemed smaller, not physically, but as if her inner strength had withered away, that very core that he had always felt, even when he ran away from home from her cold, attentive strictness. Her eyes, once sharp and focused, now seemed dull, but there was still something in her gaze that reminded him of himself as a teenager, standing before her with a guilty expression. "Mom," was all he could manage to say. She nodded slightly, turned silently, and walked deeper into the apartment. Jaeger followed, closing the door behind him. The smells were almost unchanged. The same mixture of old wood, book dust, and mint tea. But something was different, something elusive. It was as if the house was breathing differently. He put his bag against the wall and slowly walked into the kitchen. His mother was standing at the stove, for some reason leafing through an old, greasy cookbook that Jaeger remembered from his childhood. But she was doing it as if she weren't reading, just mechanically turning the pages to keep her hands busy. "Why didn't you call?" she asked without looking up. I don't know, to surprise you." She nodded too quickly, too sharply. She never liked surprises. He sat down at the table. There was a pause of several seconds, during which the only sound was the crackling of the gas on the stove. "Where's Dad?" Jaeger finally asked. "He's not home." His mother slowly closed her notebook. "He's not here right now," she said cautiously. "He's gone for a little while." It was a strange answer, too vague. His father never had a habit of going away for a little while. He was a man of schedules, timetables, and strict rules. And when Jaeger left home, he realized that he was leaving primarily because of his father's categorical nature, not his mother's demandingness. "Where to?" he asked. "Just business," his mother said briefly. He looked at her and saw that she was avoiding his gaze. And that was the first warning sign. His mother never avoided directness. She either spoke with brutal honesty or remained silent to the point of icy indifference. But like this, strange, confused, as if she had something to hide, he had never seen her before. He wanted to ask more questions, but at that moment he noticed a photograph on the table. It was old, in a worn wooden frame. In the photo were the three of them, his mother, his father, and him, Jaeger. It was taken at the dacha when he was 6 or 7 years old. His mother's gaze in the picture was soft and bright, something he hardly remembered seeing in real life. And his father was smiling. No, not the forced grin that Jaeger had seen in the last years of his life at home, but a genuine smile of a man who, at that moment, seemed to be happy. But the photo was at a strange angle. Not as usual when it was placed flat. It was slightly turned, as if someone had been in a hurry to put it away or put it back. Jaeger reached out and took the frame. On the back was yellowed paper with an old inscription in his father's handwriting. The summer when everything was right. Jaeger had never seen it before. "Mom," he began, but she interrupted him. "You must be hungry. I'll cook something for you." And for the first time, he noticed that her voice was trembling. He wanted to ask about his father again, but he realized that she wouldn't tell him right now. She wasn't ready, or maybe she was afraid. But afraid of what? He got up silently and went to the window. Down below, everything looked the same as it had 5 years ago. The old courtyard, the huge elm tree under which he used to play ball, the bench where teenagers were now probably discussing their petty dramas. Everything was the same, but it felt like someone else's life. "I'll be back soon," he said without turning around. "As long as you need," his mother replied quietly. And in that phrase there was something pleading. Jaeger felt a slow rising of anxiety inside him. It was as if he were standing on the edge of something big and heavy, something he hadn't seen yet, but could already feel with his skin. He wanted to leave the kitchen, walk through the rooms, to make sure everything was in its place. But he was afraid of seeing something he would never be able to forget. And yet, after dinner, he went out into the hallway, holding a cup of half-drunk tea in his hands. The shadows on the walls seemed thicker. The house seemed to be watching his every step. First, he pushed open the door to his old room. Everything was almost the same as he had left it, only covered with a thin layer of sterile neatness. Too neat, as if his mother had been coming here more often than usual in recent years. The books stood neatly in a row. The desk was empty, not a speck of dust. On the windowsill was the clay figurine he had made in 5th grade. His mother had said it was tasteless, but she had put it there anyway. He walked on to his parents' bedroom. The door was closed. Too closed. It used to be left ajar almost all the time, even when his father worked on his laptop until late at night. Now it was as if something forbidden was kept there. He turned around and looked at the kitchen. His mother was still standing at the sink, washing the same cup for about 5 minutes now. Jaeger slowly returned to the bedroom door and knocked quietly. "Mom," he called. "Can I take a look?" She didn't answer, but the sound of water suddenly stopped. A second later, her voice rang out. "Don't go in there. Later. Not now. Later." He felt cold, as if the door were made of ice instead of wood. He went back to his room, lay down on his old bed, and stared at the ceiling for a long time until the house became completely silent. Only when the clock struck midnight did he get up, carefully open the door, and go out into the hallway. The house was asleep, but he sensed that something was wrong. It wasn't just his father's absence. It wasn't just his mother trying to look normal. Something much deeper. He walked over to his parents' bedroom door, grabbed the handle, and as soon as he turned it, the floor creaked under his foot. The creak was quiet, barely audible, but in the silence of the night, it sounded like a blow to metal. Jaeger froze and listened. Nothing. No rustling. No breathing behind the door. No movement. Only the faint sound of the wind outside the window. He opened the door just a couple of centimeters. It was dark inside, but not the usual nighttime darkness you know from childhood. It was a different kind of darkness. Thick, motionless, heavy. He flipped the switch. The light did not come on. The light bulb had been unscrewed. He saw it immediately. The socket was empty. Why had his mother unscrewed the light bulb? Or had someone else done it? Jaeger turned on the flashlight on his phone and cautiously looked inside. The room was neat, but too neat, as if it had been prepared for something. On the bed was a perfectly stretched bedspread. On the nightstand was a book, lying deliberately flat, as if it had been placed there specifically for someone else to see. But that wasn't what caught Jaeger's eye. On the dresser was a small wooden box, the very one that his father always kept closed. He never allowed anyone to touch it. Inside, as he said, were things that should not be touched. Now the box was slightly open. Jaeger cautiously approached it, feeling a tremor run through his fingers. He slowly opened the lid, trying not to make a sound. Inside were folders, several old photographs, a few letters in worn envelopes, and a tape recorder. Silver, old with a scratch case. His father used it when he recorded his work notes, but in recent years, he seemed to have abandoned this habit. Jaeger picked up the tape recorder. On the screen was a glowing number, recording one. 43:18. 43 minutes. He hesitated to press the start button. It seemed to him that this recording contained something that would change everything. But his desire to find out proved stronger. He pressed it. First, there was static, then a voice. His father's voice. But it wasn't the confident, calm tone that Jaeger remembered. This one was distorted, tired, tense, as if he had recorded it late at night, after a long, painful conversation. "If you're listening to this, it means everything has already happened," his father said quietly. "And I don't know if I did the right thing. Maybe I should have told you earlier. Maybe I shouldn't have kept this secret." The voice disappeared in the noise for a second, then returned. "She didn't know. I didn't tell her. I didn't tell anyone. I hoped I could figure out myself. But it seems it's too late now." Jaeger felt something cold sink into his stomach. Jaeger needs to know the truth. He deserves to know, his father said again. But how do you tell a son whom you barely saved from his own collapse? How do you explain that the past he was running from was really just a shadow of what I was hiding? Jaeger clenched his teeth. From his own collapse, those words stuck with him because he knew what they meant. That very day when he broke down, when he disappeared for 2 days, when his father found him in that concrete void under the bridge, where Jaeger sat clutching a bottle in his hands and not remembering how he got there. His father was terribly angry then, but he didn't yell. He just looked at him with a heavy, appraising gaze, mixed with disappointment and fear. But that was a long time ago, and he thought his father had long forgotten. The tape recorder continued. I thought I could make amends, that I could sacrifice something of my own to protect them both. But every choice we make has a price, and mine turned out to be higher than I expected. Then there was a strange sound, as if his father had turned away and gasped sharply. If I don't come back, his voice became barely audible. Jaeger, know this. What happened to him was not an accident. It was not a mistake. It was not an unfortunate incident. It was... At that moment, the bedroom door creaked softly. Jaeger turned abruptly, his heart sinking. His mother was standing in the doorway. Her face was pale, her gaze heavy. Turn it off, she said quietly but sternly. Right now. Jaeger didn't move. Mom, he whispered. What happened? What did he mean? Who was he? Who was he talking about? She looked at the tape recorder as if it were something dangerous. Please turn it off, she said again. I'll explain everything, but not here, and not now. Let's go to the kitchen. No. Jaeger took a step back. I want to know. He says he's not coming back. Where is he? What's going on? Mom, tell me the truth. His mother closed her eyes for a second, as if gathering strength. Jaeger, she exhaled. Your father is missing. The word missing fell into the room like a stone knocking the air out of it. Jaeger slowly lowered the tape recorder. How missing? When? 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. Why didn't you tell me? His mother turned away. Because you would have come. And I. Her voice trembled. I didn't want to drag you into something you don't understand. Then explain it to me. Jaeger's voice broke. Explain it to me. She looked at him with a long, tired gaze, revealing a pain he had never seen in her before. Jaeger, she said quietly. Your father didn't disappear for no reason. He was looking for someone. The same person he talked about in the recording. The one who, she hesitated, who was connected to your childhood, to what happened that year. Jaeger's fingers went numb. That year, he knew which one she was talking about. The one they never discussed. The one that had erased much of his memory, leaving only fragments. The hospital room, his mother's screams, his father who hadn't slept at home for weeks, and that nighttime fire at the dacha, which was supposedly an accident. But Jaeger was too young to understand back then. Now his father was saying that it wasn't an accident. Mom, who is this man? He asked. She lowered her gaze. The one you remembered as a family friend. But her voice broke. He betrayed us. And in that moment, Jaeger felt the floor disappear beneath his feet. A family friend. The very same man who had disappeared at the same time as the fire. The one whom his father, as he thought, had long since cut out of his life. His name is... His mother began. But at that moment, the recorder came back to life. The words recording to flashed on the screen. It turned on by itself. And his father's voice said, his name is Oleg, and he's alive. Jaeger froze. His mother took a step back, as if struck. No, she whispered. How? What did it turn on? The tape recorder continued. If you're listening to this, it means he's back. He's returning to his unfinished business. He never leaves any traces, but I found one. One that you need to see. A rustle. A sigh. He was here. In this house. Very recently. Jaeger felt an icy shiver run down his spine. In this house. Recently. Mom. He breathed. You were here alone. Did you see anyone? His mother shook her head, but as if she was afraid to remember. I heard at night. She whispered. A rustling sound. On the balcony. But when I turned on the light, there was no one there. And I thought. Jaeger suddenly realized that this wasn't just a family secret. Not just the past. It was something that was breathing down their necks right now. And before he could say anything, the tape recorder emitted a short beep, and the recording stopped. Jaeger and his mother stood in silence, listening to their own breathing. And then his mother said, Jaeger, your father was looking for him, but he didn't know the most important thing. I didn't tell him or you about it. And maybe I shouldn't have. She looked up. It didn't start with your father. And it didn't start with you. Pause. It all started with me. Jaeger felt as if something inside him had turned upside down. The darkness in the room, the draft, the empty light bulb. Everything suddenly became sharp and threatening. He realized that what he had considered a family drama had long since grown into something capable of destroying their lives. His mother stepped forward, and now, her voice suddenly became firm. Now you have to know everything, every last drop of truth, because otherwise you won't understand why he disappeared and who is behind it. Jaeger swallowed the lump in his throat. Tell me. She closed her eyes. First of all, you should know that Oleg was once more than just a friend of the family. He was the person I trusted most, more than your father, until the day I found out what he had done. Jaeger felt his fist clench. What did he do? His mother looked at him as if years had passed. He destroyed our family. And she paused again. And he almost destroyed you. At that moment, Jaeger realized that the worst was yet to come. The room seemed to grow smaller. His mother's words hung between them like a rusty metal hook, onto which someone was slowly hanging new, heavy meanings. Jaeger felt tension growing in his chest, cold, viscous, pulling him down. He took a step closer to his mother. Explain, he said quietly, but as if each letter was cutting into the air. His mother took a deep breath and, as if making some kind of internal decision, sat down on the edge of her bed. Jaeger sat down opposite her, still clutching the switched-off tape recorder in his hand. You were little, she began, staring intently at a spot on the floor. Back then, you didn't understand what it meant to trust someone, and what it meant to be wrong in that trust. She paused. I didn't understand either. We thought Oleg was a gift from fate. Reliable, calm, experienced. He helped your father with his business. They worked together, and your father listened to him. He rarely trusted anyone that much. Jaeger leaned forward slightly. But everything changed, and very quickly. She looked up, and for the first time in a long time, looked him straight in the eye. Jaeger, we didn't tell you, but the year the fire happened, Oleg was living with us. This statement hit him unexpectedly. Jaeger remembered the house, remembered some vague, blurred silhouettes of strangers, but he couldn't remember Oleg living under the same roof. Why, he asked. He said he was in trouble, his mother replied, that he needed time, and she clenched her fingers. I insisted that he stay. At the time, I thought I was doing a good deed. I didn't know that by letting him into our home, I was letting in a stranger's shadow. She fell silent. Mom, Jaeger gently touched her hand. What did he do? She didn't answer for a long time, as if weighing each future phrase. At first, nothing, she said. On the contrary, everything got even better. He became your friend. You were drawn to him. He knew how to get along with you. He was attentive, caring. You were going through a difficult period then, school, adjustment. Your personality was complicated. Oleg helped you, and not just you. He listened to me. He understood. And her voice faltered. I felt like I could talk to him about things I couldn't talk to your father about. Jaeger felt something cold slowly creeping down his spine. Wait. He exhaled. Were you close to him? His mother recoiled as if she had been struck. No, she said sharply. No, Jaeger. I never betrayed your father. But Oleg, he was too sensitive to other people's weaknesses. He picked up on moods. He was there at those moments when you think he's the only one who understands you. But it was a game in which you don't even realize you're being led. She clenched her hands so tightly that her knuckles turned white. I realized it in time, but your father didn't. Jaeger frowned. Was Dad jealous? He thought there was something between us, his mother said quietly. And I couldn't convince him otherwise. Oleg knew how to leave an impression. Words, gestures, little hints that looked wrong. My father started to get angry. We started arguing. And you, she looked at her son. That was the first time you saw us yelling at each other. Jaeger remembered. Flashes, fragments of sounds, shadows. He was scared. He sat under the table, covering his ears with his hands. But that's not all, his mother continued. He did worse. Much worse. More intuitively than consciously, Jaeger noticed that the room had grown colder. He felt as if one more word would shatter everything he considered reality. Oleg started interfering with you, she said, unobtrusively, as if by accident. He told you that your father was too strict. He told me that your father didn't know how to be there for you. He told your father that I was too tired. He pitted us against each other, slowly, almost imperceptibly, but he did it with such precision, as if he knew exactly which buttons to push. She raised her hand to her face, as if she were having trouble breathing. And then one day, he did something that destroyed everything. Jaeger clenched his teeth. What? He asked. He told your father something I had confided in him as a friend. Something very personal, very painful. Something your father shouldn't have found out the way he did. From someone else's mouth. From a stranger. She closed her eyes. It was a low form of manipulation. And it worked. Your father drove himself into a rage. One you had never seen before. He became cold. Harsh. But not to me, to you. Because Jaeger felt his heart beat faster. Because Oleg told him that you weren't his son. Silence hung in the room like a deafening lump. Jaeger held his breath. His mother looked at him with wide eyes, her gaze filled with fear, guilt, and despair. It was a lie, she said hoarsely. A pure, cold lie. He told your father that I had had an affair, that you were the child of that affair. And your father, he didn't believe it at first. But Oleg found a way. He forged letters, messages. He set a psychological trap to make it all seem logical. And your father, he was devastated. He looked at you and didn't know what to think. Jaeger felt the ground disappear beneath his feet, as if the floor had vanished completely. His mother was talking, but he could hear her voice as if through water. I tried to explain. I screamed. I begged. He didn't believe me. He didn't want to believe me, because everything fit together too convincingly. And Oleg disappeared, suddenly, that same night. And 2 days later, there was a fire at the dacha. Jaeger stared at his mother. The fire was because of him. His mother nodded slowly. He came back at night, quietly, to take away the evidence of his lie, and probably to cover his tracks. He wanted to do it neatly, quickly. But you, her voice broke. You were there. Jaeger felt his chest tighten. You woke up, his mother said. You heard noises. You went downstairs, and you saw him. And she covered her face with her hands. He didn't want you to see. He scared you, and you ran. You fell. You hit the edge of the hatch. You lost consciousness. And then, fire. Fire that shouldn't have been there. Jaeger remembered. Flashes. Heat. The smell of smoke. Someone's hands dragging him outside. It was your father, said your mother. He found you. He carried you out in his arms, breaking down the door with his shoulder. He saved your life. And Oleg disappeared for good. For years. Jaeger sat down, unable to feel his legs. His head was buzzing. His chest felt sharp and burning. Then my father believed me, his mother said quietly, right away, without proof, because he understood that everything Oleg did was for the sake of destruction, for the sake of breaking things, for the sake of something we never understood. She sighed. But my father never forgave himself for doubting even for a moment. He didn't forgive himself for his weakness, and he didn't forgive Oleg. And since then, he's been looking for him. For years. Secretly. Endlessly. Jaeger raised his head. And now he's gone, he said. Because of him. His mother didn't answer. She nodded silently. And Jaeger understood. This story was not just a family drama. It was a hunt. A long, hidden, painful hunt. His father's hunt for the man who had once destroyed their lives. And now his father had become the prey. Jaeger stood up. Where are his tracks? He asked. What? His mother looked up. The tracks, Mom. You said Dad found one. Where is it? I need to know. She shook her head, fear flashing in her eyes. No, Jaeger. It's dangerous. You don't know who. That's exactly why I need to know, he interrupted. I'm not a child. And if Dad is there alone, if he's alive, I'll find him. We'll do it together. His mother looked at him for a long time. It was as if she was seeing a grown man in front of her for the first time. Then she slowly got up and went to the dresser. She opened the bottom drawer and took out a thin folder. This clue, She held out the folder. It's the only thing I could find. I didn't want to show it to you, but maybe you're right. Jaeger took the folder. He opened it. Inside was a single photograph and a piece of paper with an address. The photograph was blurry, as if taken from a distance. It showed the figure of a man walking down the street. But one thing stood out: the scarf in his hand. The very same one that Jaeger had once given to his father. The only one that his father always carried in his pocket. Jaeger felt the blood freeze in his veins. Is that him? He asked. His mother nodded slowly. I think yes. Jaeger clutched the photograph, and he realized there was no turning back now. Jaeger stared at the photograph for a long time, at the blurriness, at the step, as if caught in mid-motion, at the scarf, which was the only proof that his father was still alive, or that someone wanted him to think so. He looked up at his mother. Where was this taken? She lowered her gaze. She sighed, on the outskirts near the old bus station. Your father went there several times. He said he saw a man who looked like Oleg. I didn't believe him. Now, I don't know. Jaeger put the photo back in the folder. I'll go there tomorrow. Alone. Fear crept in her mother's voice. No, he said after a short pause. You're coming with me. She didn't answer right away. Then she slowly nodded. Okay. They hardly slept that night. The house became restless, as if the walls also sensed the approach of something important. His mother paced the hallway, while Jaeger lay in his room staring at the ceiling, unable to tell for the first time in many years whether he was afraid or ready. But one feeling was stronger than the others. The feeling that all this was not just a search. It was a return to what he had hidden inside himself for so long. The morning air was damp and thick, as if saturated with anticipation. The outskirts greeted them with emptiness, abandoned boxes, old buses, rusty fencing. Silence. The kind of silence that usually prevails where no one has lived for a long time. Jaeger got out first. He walked ahead, holding the photograph in his hand, checking every bump in the road, every pole, every corner. His mother followed him, quiet, tense. They walked around the station, along the tracks, looked into the dilapidated pavilion. Everything was empty. Too empty. There's nothing here, his mother said quietly. Wait. Jaeger suddenly noticed something on the wall of the old control room. A small, scratched-out, barely noticeable mark. He moved closer. It was a cross. And next to it, the letter E. He ran his finger over the scratch. It was fresh. Too fresh. Mom. Jaeger exhaled. Is that him? Is that Dad? His mother stood slightly behind him. Her face turned pale. Jaeger, she whispered. It doesn't look like Dad's handwriting. He turned abruptly. Oleg. She didn't answer. She just took a step back, as if she had heard something. And at that moment, Jaeger heard it too. Something creaked quietly behind the building, as if someone had stepped on a dry branch. He slowly walked around the corner and froze. The same scarf was lying on the ground, crumpled, dirty, but without a doubt his father's. But next to it was not his father. A man was standing there, tall, thin, with a tired face covered in stubble. He kept his hands in his jacket pockets and looked straight at Jaeger. There was no aggression in his gaze, only a strange, heavy calmness. Hello, Jaeger, he said. The voice that had once been heard often in their home. Warm, calm, and now unfamiliar. Jaeger felt as if the world around him had stopped. Oleg. The man smiled slightly. I'm glad you came. Where's my father? Jaeger asked. Where is he? Oleg didn't move. Your father was here, he said softly, and he saw the same thing you see now. But he understood the wrong thing. What have you done? Jaeger took a step forward, but Oleg raised his hand. I didn't hurt him. Not then, not now. You need to hear this before you make a mistake. Jaeger froze. His mother moved closer, but stayed behind him. You destroyed our family, Jaeger said coldly. You destroyed my father. Me. You. Oleg took a step forward. I didn't destroy it, he said quietly. You did that yourselves. I just accelerated the processes that were already inside. Your mother was unhappy. Your father was closed off. You were lost. I didn't break you. I showed you. You couldn't stand your own reflection. Lies, his mother cried out. You manipulated. You lied. Oleg looked at her with a strange kind of regret. Yes, I manipulated. Because I wanted you to leave. I wanted you to be with me. And yes, it was a mistake. I thought I was saving you, but I was destroying you. I admit it. He slowly looked up at Jaeger. But what happened at the dacha back then? He shook his head. That wasn't me. Jaeger frowned. What? The fire, Oleg said. I didn't start it. I was there, yes, to get my papers, but I didn't start the fire. Jaeger felt everything inside him tighten. Then who did? Oleg exhaled slowly. Your father. Silence fell as if the world had fallen into a void. His mother opened her mouth but couldn't make a sound. Jaeger stood motionless, as if he had lost the ability to breathe. You're lying, he said hoarsely. You just want to— I saw him. Oleg interrupted. He got there before me. He drank. A lot. He was talking out loud. He shouted. He wanted everything to disappear. He wanted the house, the memories, the shadows, everything to burn. He set fire to the gasoline in the basement. And then he saw you. He saw you coming downstairs. And then everything inside him collapsed. He rushed towards you. He saved you. But he started the fire. Jaeger shook his head. No, my father would. He confessed to me, said Oleg. A year ago, when he found me, he thought he could fix the past by burning it to the ground. But the past isn't a house. It's inside. Jaeger stood there as if in a fog. Everything in his head was falling apart. The image of his father, strict, reserved, but reliable, was crumbling, turning into a man blinded by despair. A man who, on the verge of breaking, could have killed his own son, and then, in the same second, pulled him out of the fire. Where is he? Jaeger asked quietly. Where is my father now? Oleg looked away. He left me yesterday. He said he couldn't live between the past and the present anymore, that he had to end it himself. I tried to stop him, but he left. He looked at Jaeger again. And do you know where? Jaeger closed his eyes. He whispered. Oleg nodded. To where it all began. To you. To her. To you. He thought you would be able to hear him. Finally, his mother covered her face with her hands. Jaeger felt something inside him stretching, tearing, breaking, and at the same time coming together. He took a step back. It suddenly became clear to him. This story was never about an enemy haunting them from the past. It wasn't about a stranger who ruined their lives. It was all just a chain of decisions, wrong, belated, painful, but still human. And his father was at the very center of those decisions. Not a hero, not a villain, a man, broken, frightened, out of control, but still trying to save those he loved. Jaeger opened his eyes. We'll find him, he said, alive. Or, his voice faltered, or as he is. But this will end today. He turned to his mother. She nodded. Oleg stood there, not approaching. If you want, I can help, he said quietly. Jaeger looked at him for a long time. No, he replied. This is our path. Without you. Oleg lowered his eyes, as if accepting his sentence. No anger, no resentment, just a heavy, weary understanding. Jaeger and his mother left. Oleg remained at the station, alone, surrounded by his mistakes, which had finally caught up with him. The door to the house was ajar. Jaeger pushed it open, his heart beating too loudly. They went inside. It was quiet inside, too quiet. And in the kitchen, sitting at the table, holding that same handkerchief, sat his father. Tired, pale, but alive. He looked up, and for the first time in many years, he cried. Not a word of apology, not an attempt to explain. Just the tears of a grown man who had carried an unbearable burden for too long. Jaeger approached. He stood beside him. He didn't hug him. He just put his hand on his shoulder. And that was enough. Sometimes the truth doesn't heal. It only opens the wound. But only when the wound is open can it finally heal. This house became the place where each of them said aloud for the first time what they had been afraid to say for years. Where they heard each other not as accusations, but as requests for help. Where they ceased to be strangers and became a family again, broken but real. The past did not disappear, but they ceased to be its prisoners. Sometimes the scariest thing in our lives is not secrets, enemies, or other people's mistakes, but our own silence. The silence in which we drown, afraid to speak the truth. And only when the silence is finally broken does the chance to start over appear. not with a clean slate, but with an honest one. And that is always more valuable.